been another month, another round of vindication for #Gamergate, as one of our most hated critics, Devin Farasi, has been forced off the internet because of some allegations somebody levelled at him on Twitter for something that happened way back, because funnily enough of the controversy around Donald Trump. Now before I get into this, now I've only got one source for this, because this is actually part of the video that I'm talking about, because there's other parts to this that happens, and this is from One Angry Gamer. All the articles from One Angry Gamer, they have feature heavily into this story, so let's get stuck into it, shall we? So it all started last week where a person called @SpaceCrone on Twitter was talking about something that happened to her a couple of years back in the wake of the non-issue of Trump talking about sexual things in a joking manner. She then starts to reflect on this event that happened to her, and she says the following tweets. "Things like this have happened to most women I know, often by someone in an extended social circle. Am I enjoying seeing him dragged? No. I felt bad for him at the time. But in this political climate, I'm enraged. People who have had similar things happen and are really triggered by the news cycle right now. I feel you, and you are not alone." Triggered. Oh God. Or otherwise violated, and then had to see that person posture as a feminist on social media or anywhere. That of course is Devin Farasi, a well-known feminist and critic of Gamergate, also a film critic. I don't really care if he apologises, mostly tweeting in solidarity with every person who has ever been grabbed by the pussy. It's not just your Trumps or your Republicans, it's your friendly neighbourhood film critics and Twitter feminists. I've avoided making that public for over a decade, but I guess my rage at Trump has uncast the Gorgon in me. Literally stuck his hands down my pants at a bar while I told him to stop, then told our friends he had finger banged me. Sitting here trying to remember if a man had ever grabbed me by the vagina against my will, and well, yes, a popular Twitter feminist. This was what, 10 years ago? 2016, I was 13, so I wouldn't have known about Devin Farasi, but who would have known about Devin Farasi? Who would have known about any of these people before Gamergate and before this decade? Surely, if something had happened, she would have gone to the police and reported him, right? She could have just reported it, filed a police complaint, he would have been arrested, and if it was found that he had committed a crime, surely he would have gone to jail. But hey, let's be open about this. It may or may not have happened. And then she only goes and tweets at him, and she asks, quick question, do you remember grabbing me by the pussy and bragging to our friends about it, telling them to smell your fingers? And now, in a move where I can only describe as one of the most dumbest things someone could possibly make when they're being accused of something, unlike say Max Temkin or other people like that, he only goes and says this: "I do not remember this. I can only believe you and beg forgiveness for having been so vile." He doesn't remember doing this. Who knows, he could have been drunk, he could have been sober, it might never have happened, it could have happened, but because his ideology tells him to believe potential or actual victims of everything, you know, rather than being skeptical and trying to find the truth of the matter, or defend yourself when someone's, you know, throwing an accusation, because that's what people usually do if it's come out of nowhere and it might be false or it might not be. Again, I'm just trying to be balanced here, people. He admits to doing something that he doesn't remember because that's what he's been taught and brainwashed to do. So not only does that make him look worse than it would be if he had denied it or said stop trying to spread things or simply have ignored it, it causes a whole lot of issues. See, the thing is, none of them actually report a time or a place where this event was to have occurred, and indeed in One Angry Gamer they mentioned that Farasi is located in Los Angeles and SpaceCrone is located in New York. I don't know if Devin has lived there for the past 10 years or she has lived there in the past 10 years, but they mention New York Penal Law under the forcible touching subsection, and it states, "A person is guilty of forcible touching when such person intentionally and for no legitimate purpose forcibly touches the sexual or other intimate parts of another person for the purpose of degrading or abusing such person, or for the purpose of gratifying the act of sexual desire. For the purpose of this section, forcible touching includes squeezing, grabbing, or pinching." Now, it's classed as a misdemeanor and is a sexual offence. So if when they met and the alleged event took place, he could be hit with a sexual offence misdemeanor. In California, it is any person who touches an intimate part of another person if the touching is against the will of the person touched and is for the specific purpose of sexual arousal, sexual gratification, or sexual abuse, is guilty of misdemeanor sexual battery, punishable by a fine not exceeding $2,000. In California, it seems to fall under many different types of crimes, and he would also be fined. But what's more interesting about this is people who remember the last 2 years, Devin Farasi had previously attacked us in Gamergate for being an harassment movement and trying to attack women and all sorts of stuff, and even said that he had more respect for ISIS. As you can see here, that's on the heels of the Zoe Quinn stuff and the never-ending harassment of Anita Sarkeesian. What is wrong with gamers? They're zealots. ISIS with Steam accounts. Real question is, what is wrong with Zoe Quinn and Anita? Well, there's a lot wrong with them, but they were really not the main focus of Gamergate. What Zoe Quinn did with Nathan Grayson and other journalists and game developers is, because that's a conflict of interest there. They were promoting her and all other sorts of stuff. But hey, never mind. It's about them as people rather than the actions. And also, as for Anita, she inserted herself into that mess for publicity. She was literally nothing until she decided to comment on it. And then he finally says the infamous tweet, I have more respect for ISIS than the anti-Quinn people. Anti-Quinn people rather than, hashtag Gamergate, the consumer revolt. They also accompanied various articles that he published, which is just propaganda against Gamergate. And it turns out, 2 years later, that yes, we are about ethics in games journalism. And yes, these people are the worst scum on the internet. They are what they preached that we were. And I just find it funny. And apparently, as One Angry Gamer reports, more than 50 pages worth of Gamergate material has been used by the FTC in their investigation of Gawker, and also Gamergate managed to make them change their ethics guidelines. So apparently, from the harassment movement, they've done a lot of good. That tweet that Farasi said, claiming not to remember and begging for forgiveness about something he may or may not have done that he can't remember, his boss told him to get away from the internet. That was his last ever tweet, and they would discuss the issue with each other. By the way, the journal that he works for is Birth Movies Death. I don't know if that's birth.movies.death. He then announced on the 10th, barely a day later, that he was resigning from his editor-in-chief position. All this because of an allegation that no one has proved yet and was 10 years ago, and for all we know could be possible to trial now. Whatever, people, this is what happens. Accusations are evidence, and this can impact a person's reputation. So now they know what it's like when they do this to other guys. But the thing is, he's accepted that and he thinks that he did do something. But let's move on, people, because the story gets spicier. Now, One Angry Gamer released an article about MovieBob apparently being complicit in silencing of Devin Farasi's sexual abuse. Now, since then, there has been an update. The wording of this section was altered at the request of Bob Chipman. This time it was Bob Chipman who acknowledged that he was complicit in the current climate of abuse and silence by dismissing past claims about Farasi's uncouth behaviour, which permeated the inner circles of the anti-Gamergate ranks. In particular, the scenario that Chipman is referring to is yet another case involving second-hand claims laid at former Birth Movies Death editor-in-chief Devin Farasi, separate from another recent claim made against the movie critic and tech journalist. And then later on at the bottom, they say, in compliance with their ethics policy, Chipman explained in multiple email messages that he did not feel that this was a newsworthy story and that the focus should be on the victim. He also stated that his quotes do not infer complicity in covering up Devin Farasi's alleged sexual assault, but that he was complicit in the general and broader atmosphere of a cycle of silence. Chipman requested that none of the email statements be posted or quoted in full. So all this happened only a couple of days ago, where MovieBob decided to weigh in on the issue, and this is what he says. Okay, no more being a chicken shit about this. Someone I love tried to tell me what they'd heard about Devin Farasi a year ago. I didn't listen. I was dismissive, thick-headed, didn't want to hear it, and all for stupid, selfish, short-sighted reasons. In doing so, I was complicit in a status quo of abuse and silence, caused pain to someone I care about, and likely made others around me feel less safe and able to be open about themselves. There's no excuse for it, no justification, no getting around it. I did the exact wrong thing, period. He then further wrote, silence hurts, not believing hurts, being dismissive hurts, don't do it. I am ashamed of myself, of my lack of actions, my callousness to those who I love, I provided I did not deserve. I have to live with that. Bottom line, believe women, believe people when they try to tell you these things. Well, one more thing, I'm sorry, that can't possibly account for all. I am truly. So is MovieBob complicit in silencing? Well, to an extent you can argue that yes, he was. I kind of err on that, although he can claim that's libel, but it's not silencing as in we must cover this up, we will not allow this to come out. This is more of a case of not saying anything, not doing anything about it. They do not speak about this. They present a united front against the so-called actual harassers. That's still silencing. That's still being complicit in something, but it's kind of an unwritten thing. It's more of a groupthink mentality. And that's basically what he admits, although his complaints to the One Angry Gamer, considering it to be libel, is just farcical. They use his own words against him. He said all of that. He basically admitted that he was complicit in a culture of silence. He didn't speak up. And that's the issue here. He didn't speak up. He didn't call out Devin Farasi and all the other bullies and harassers that were going on and who he was affiliated with. And it's just so funny that now he's speaking up. 2 years too late, 10 years too late, 5 years too late. It doesn't matter when this other event occurred, or even the one that Devin Farasi had to resign for, which may or may not have happened. It's too late, MovieBob. You had your chance to sort your own house out. You could have called them out. You could have become a pariah against these people. Seeing that's how they listen and believe and how you advocate for all this, how come you didn't do it? Why? Is it because the politics and attacking Gamergate was more important important than women's safety? Really? Is that really what you think? Or at least what you thought at the time and now you don't? This is the same guy who said this: "It's hard for me to be objective about the organised campaigns of harassment going on via social media, both before and now through the hashtag Gamergate stuff. Mostly because so much of it is being launched against people who are my friends and colleagues, but also because it's difficult for me to even find a proper way to respond. Hence why I've occasionally been seen to resort to harsh language, angry name calling, or simply retweeting the anguish I'm seeing from others. Those first two I've apologised for already. The third demands none." Well, that's funny because your own side is that, and you did nothing. You did not sort it out. You simply went silent and allowed them to do whatever it is they wanted to do. And that's on you. And what's funny is you were dismissive, thick-headed, didn't want to hear it, all for stupid, selfish, short-sighted reasons. That's funny because that's all you ever have been, especially since hashtag Gamergate. That's why you find it hard to be objective about it, because you are these things. And it turns out you find it very hard to be objective about shit on your own side. So I guess what we can say is that, yeah, covered up to an extent. If you consider being silent and not reporting these people and not trying to sort them out, I would say it's pseudo covering it up, and his silence was golden, and that's all we need to know. He basically admits it, even if he tries to deny it and backpedal on Twitter all he wants. So there we have it, people. Anti-GG, again, showing that they are the harassers, they are the ones with the sexual abuse problems, they are the ones who have the poor attitudes to women, and I think that's more vindication, as I said before. So until next time, this has been Charming Man 93. Like and share the video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you all later.